Okay, so this is the Pixel 6a. This is one of the most important devices of the year because of the price to performance ratio. And let's be fair, most of the smartphone market is flooded with affordable options out of which people mostly buy, because only a few go to $1,000+ phone. Let's start with the design. Now before we begin our discussion, we have to keep in mind that this is available for around $450 in the US and about 30,000 rupees in India. And if you try, you might even get it for 27,000-28,000 in India. Now keeping that in mind, this has a very sturdy build. The aluminium rails are matte finished. It has a Gorilla Glass 3 in front, but this phone has a plastic back, which wasn't expected. After so many years of glass sandwich phones, I almost forgot about the plastic back. But to their defense, this back doesn't feel like plastic at all. Like for some days I thought that this was a glass back phone. Also, I think in mid-rangers, good quality plastic are a good option so that the customers don't have to deal with cracked glasses, as they are already on tight budget or don't want to invest much in phones. But do remember to put some kind of plastic protector, because being plastic, it scratches very easily. And the punch hole here is very small as compared to other cheaper devices, by the way, which houses a great camera. With that said, it's IP67 water and dust resistant. Now this device has dual stereo speakers, but mostly the volume comes from the bottom firing one and the top speaker is a little low on output. Apart from the stereo separation, these are very loud speakers, but they do lack the richness in sound. Here is a speaker test. This is the second year of the flat design, which is okay. There aren't many types of sides. Hot take, I like the curved edges of iPhone X more than the flat one. First of all, it gives a much better grip and just feels good in the hand. It doesn't poke in your hand much. I wish we had a choice if we want a flat side or a curved one. Yes, I know that is too much to ask. And also when we had curved edges, the screen... So this phone comes with a full HD panel. It does have slight color shift at steeper angles, which is far from distracting. But this phone's bezels are quite chunky, and in my personal time with it, I got comfortable with it easily considering it's a budget phone. It's okay if they couldn't shrink the bezels, that's the right trade-off in my opinion. It comes with 3 display modes: natural, boosted and adaptive. I generally like to keep it on adaptive mode. It has HDR10 Plus 2. Even though the natural is the most color accurate, but it lacks that punch. Pixels display reach at a nit count of 500 with manual 100% and about 850 with auto brightness enabled. What I found was that be it speakers or display, when you slide the volume or brightness till 70%, the overall increase in brightness or volume is less as compared to when you go from 75% to 100%. So at 100% the brightness is good enough. Yes, you wouldn't be able to enjoy content, but can read or get the basic work done in direct sunlight. It's kind of in the same ballpark as an iPhone 12. But this is a 20:9 display, so it's quite long and cuts a lot of 16:9 content. But then again, this phone is narrow and very comfortable to hold on to. So let's talk about the software and its features. So when I got this phone, in a few days Android 13 update was pushed and I instantly downloaded it. And wow, it's buttery smooth. People pointed out that this phone chips and chops a lot. Well, I don't think so. It's very smooth, and pair that with the great haptic motor, it just takes the experience to the next level. Like Gboard on Pixel with haptics on felt so much better than iPhone with iOS 16 and haptics. I can't explain why, but it just does. Also with Android 13, the fingerprint scanner works so much better. It also has a haptic which tells you almost how long you have to put the finger. There is a haptic feedback everywhere. Like when you pull down the notification shade or go to multitasking or long press anywhere. Whenever Google Assistant activates, it vibrates and tells you that it's ready to answer. The software in itself is really great. You have an option to match accent colors to the main color of the wallpaper and change the icon colors too, which is still in beta and only changes color of some icons. Notifications are very well implemented as usual. Most of the times I replied to text, WhatsApp or Insta DMs directly from the notifications, and most of the unimportant ones go down the list in silent category. So Google Assistant is very tightly integrated and it actually is very helpful. It does all the basic stuff on a Hey Google command and it's one of the best for speech typing, really fast and accurate. But it's not that it's perfect. There are some things I like better about the iOS. Like when in dark mode, iOS blacks out all the menus and pages background, while Google only grays them out. It's a very small thing, but why not give an option? Plus, I really like this weather widget, but there is no option to remove it. In iOS, you can actually use two fingers to simultaneously close two apps or swipe two notifications away. But in Android, it doesn't work, although they have a clear all button, but still. Like if you try to close two apps, it will only close one. I'll tell you one more small nitpick for instance, which actually improves the user experience. Like when you're on Instagram and watching stories, most of us watch like 1 second of the story and swipe to the next one. And similarly pull down on stories after watching one or two. While pulling down, there is a minute time difference when Android reacts to my pull down and when iPhone reacts to my pull down. But when you do this gesture endless times, it does feel smoother on iOS. And these aren't things that can't be fixed with, I don't know, a software update. Maybe I'm the only one who feels so. I'm not saying iOS is perfect, but today it's Pixels Day. Apart from nitpicks like that, I couldn't find any major problem with it. The software is buttery smooth in day-to-day use. Yes, I haven't tested much gaming on it, but I would suggest if you want to game, buy something with Snapdragon or Adreno GPU because they are mostly better at heat management and performance. But that doesn't mean you cannot game on it. It basically has the same processor as an S21 Ultra and I used to play games on that. But this is more of a utility phone with great camera and battery life. Since we are on it, let's talk about the cameras. And before that, I would like to remind you to please like and subscribe the channel if you are liking the content. Camera interface is pretty simple and I couldn't find the option of HDR on or off. I guess now it's always on auto mode. You can record 4K 60fps videos with the rear camera, but it still is locked to 1080p from the front one. Here are some stabilization modes which have been carried over from previous Pixels, but if you use higher stabilization, the quality drops to Full HD and also there is a heavy crop. So I always go with the normal stabilization. So about the hardware, it has two 12-megapixel sensors of which one is ultra wide. It's 112mm focal length and frankly it doesn't even feel like an ultra wide, rather a wider normal main sensor. Speaking of which, Google has been using same 12-megapixel sensor on the main camera since the Pixel 2. But this time they have Tensor to run their camera algorithms. But definitely now these 4-year-old sensors are showing their age in front of latest flagships. Camera quality is really great, but I wouldn't like to see this sensor even on the A series smartphones again. Because of algorithms, it still has one of the best dynamic range and texture or overall quality. But for a phone of this price, I would say this has the best set of cameras and believe me, only people like us over-evaluate. A regular customer won't see any quality difference between this and the iPhones or flagship Galaxies, which shows how good this is. Video quality is also quite stable, has decent dynamic range, colors, but it lacks in the crispiness, even when there is a little less than adequate light. Probably the Pixel 7 has gotten better in video quality. I'll leave some samples for you to check out and also I'll be comparing cameras of iPhone 13 and this and see if Google can keep up or even beat the latest iPhones with a 4-year-old sensor in the next video. Being true to you all, in portraits I still see errors in cutouts, but apparently it still has better cutout algorithm than the iPhone 13. So basically the only reason this phone is able to blow punches at phones of 3 times its price is because of the computational photography which is handled by the Tensor chip now. So I was hoping Google to beat the top chips like A15 or Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, but instead they went with a very different approach. They aren't focusing on benchmarks. By the way, this chip is also in 6 and 6 Pro and scores 3200 on Geekbench 5. So Google is trying to optimize the chip on different task bases. Like it has huge gains in AI, it scores even more than 8 plus Gen 1 in AI part of the chip. They have designed their own ISP, which is the reason for such good results from camera. Then they have this TPU or tensor processing unit, which greatly improves speech detection, and that really shows. It's very accurate and fast, which I haven't seen on any other phone. And that quickness and accuracy makes you want to use voice commands or dictate long paragraphs which you would have typed. So instead of focusing on high scoring CPU, which mostly no one utilizes, they have taken this different route. Even their G2 doesn't score much in Geekbench, but early camera tests shows an epic 4K video and obviously photographs, with greater cooling, which is a bit of an issue with this chip. My take on it is that when I hear about 5000 Geekbench scores, I secretly want Tensor or Snapdragon or even Exynos to have that. But practically speaking, most people don't use their phones to the potential where they would need that kind of power. And when they do, these chips throttle badly after a minute or so. So what's the point when your sustained performance is still low? I think they're having a good approach to develop different parts of SoC in accordance to the features they offer. But still, I think they are 2 years behind in raw performance. They should minimize this gap to at least 1 year. While we're on the chip, let's also talk about the battery. Clearly, what I can see as an advantage to a normally powered chip is the battery performance. This phone has an approximately 4400 mAh battery, which is quite plenty when we consider 60Hz display that goes to a max of 850 nits of brightness, and a medium powered processor. This regularly gave me around 6 to 7 hours of screen on time with about 20 to 22 hours off the charger. I found it has really good standby time. Generally, Androids have this tendency to drain a big chunk even when in sleep mode, but this used about 3 to 4% of battery overnight. But the screen on time figure doesn't include gaming. I haven't tested that. It's actually a 1-day battery as advertised by Google. Having said that, my take on this phone is that at prices of $450 or 35,000 rupees, it has top of the line camera, epic software, a good processor, and a great display, keeping the refresh rate aside. So it's an easy recommendation for anyone who wants a phone in this price range. That's all for me in this video. It would be great if you could hit the subscribe button. Thank you.